Hey, y'all, welcome back to another episode of Confessions of a Male Gynecologist. I'm America's Holistic Gynecologist, and yes, I have named myself America's Holistic Gynecologist. So when you name yourself, you can call yourself whatever you want. So I could be the world's holistic gynecologist, but I didn't want to get greedy. Now, this person today that I have on is somebody that I've been connected with on Instagram for, well, we were just talking years. She made the big move from Houston, which nothing against Houston people, but it's Houston. And she moved to Florida, which is a lot better, I would think. Although probably pretty hot and balmy like it is in Houston, so you probably still feel at home. Lacey Dunn, who, if you've ever seen a picture of Lacey, she's small, but she's got more muscles than I do. So she's pretty buff. I mean, any of you women out there that want to follow somebody, and we'll get into how to follow Lacey, but she's got a lot going on. And a year or two ago, right around the time when my book came out, she wrote the Woman's Guide to Hormonal Harmony, how to rebalance your hormones, master your metabolism, and become the boss of your own body. So very, very similar to what I talk about. So Lacey, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to get to connect with you and chat with you again, and love getting to continuously see all the incredible wisdom you continue to put out into the internet for free. Love
You
it.
know, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell her to say that. So, just so y'all know, it is very kind of you to say that. We have been following each other for a long, long time. You are Faith and Fit, correct? On
Yes, that would be
Instagram.
my Instagram. People think my name is Faith, but my name is Lacy.
Well, so I was going to ask that because I'm assuming the faith part is that do you have kind of a strong faith and a religious faith, and that's why you named yourself with that?
Full-heartedly Team Jesus. Everything I do is because of him. So I originally started the
Good.
account as Fit and Faith, and then that got blocked out. And so I became Faith and Fit. And now I just confuse the world and everybody thinks my name is Faith. It's
They
fine.
blocked it. They blocked it, or what happened?
I have zero clue. I wasn't able to get access. And the way
Ah,
Instagram worked back
yeah.
then, it was like if you lost your account, you're done for. Now that there's all those other like things that you could do, the meta verified, all that. But it wasn't
Yeah.
back then, so I got locked out.
Did you have a lot of followers when that happened?
A little bit. I had like maybe 20K,
Oh,
but was able to build it
still,
back.
you had to start all over.
Hmm.
Wow, that's horrible. So, did you? I mean, everybody that's well, not everybody, but most people in this wellness world have a story. I mean, usually it's I call it that wounded healer archetype. You had some sort of wound. My mom had ovarian cancer, kind of pushed me in this direction. There's usually a wound. Did you have something that kind of propelled you into this space where you are right now? Some
Yeah,
personal journey? Okay.
multiple things that pushed me. And it's been
I
an
want it.
evolution for me. And you mentioned ovarian cancer. That was the start for me that got me
Mm,
into nutrition. My grandma, unfortunately, was diagnosed with colon cancer and it became metastatic. And I was diving into the literature back then. I was going into biomedical sciences at UCF, and I became completely obsessed with learning about nutrition, fighting cancer, preventing chronic diseases. And so at that point, I decided to go to become a dietitian to hopefully go into cancer research. My goal was like MD Anderson, cancer nutrition, all that. And so was going through that path that made me completely obsessed with nutrition. And at that time too, I fell into the world of bodybuilding, right? So I had twofold love for cancer nutrition, love for chronic disease prevention, but also completely physique changing, fat loss, gaining muscle, body recomposition. So I was walking both ways. And then when I went into my dietetic internship, I went to Houston, and
mhm.
that's when things got different. So that's when I fell into the world of functional medicine, because at that time, while I was doing my internship, you guys, is a full-time job. I mean, it's 8 hours a day working for free. It's
Yeah.
crazy. But I was also getting a master's degree. I was a full-time online physique coach, helping people with bodybuilding, basically burning myself into the ground and competing at the same time. So unfortunately, I started to feel like absolute crap. And that's when I actually developed my own hypothyroidism from burnout. So gained a bunch of weight, which was not normal for me being a small human. Lost my muscle with gaining that weight,
Mm.
hair loss, fatigue, my eyebrows fell off. I was puffy all the time. Digestion was a crap. And so I learned all that through some of my courses, because we were talking about iodine and zinc and all the roles of the micronutrients, the macronutrients in regards to thyroid health. And that's when I figured out, wow, I don't feel normal, because I started to read Aviva Romm's thyroid health
Oh,
book.
yeah. Yeah.
And I learned about, I caught up with thyroidism. And from there, I was able to get all the testing that I needed, because my doctor wouldn't pull, of course, a full thyroid panel. He wouldn't pull
Yeah.
cortisol. He wouldn't do a Dutch. And so I had to go to naturopath in order to get some of this done. And so
Yeah.
I got all that done and was able to bring myself back to a healthier, happy place, go back to competing, feel like my very best self. And that's just the first route of what I call my journey. There's more to the story. Back in 2020, and I'll keep it as short as possible.
Sure.
Unfortunately,
No,
back
go
in
ahead.
2020, I was in Houston, right? Houston,
Yeah.
we had
Yeah.
Harvey. We had a hurricane. And unfortunately, the apartment I had moved into, I didn't know at the time, was riddled with mold.
Mm.
So after feeling better, a year after, basically, I started developing even worse issues. And unfortunately, with that mold, I actually lost a significant amount of weight. I didn't even see it happening because I was actually writing my book at that time. So I just thought, okay, I'm exercising less. But over time, it progressively completely fell off. My hair fell off. I lost a lot of weight. I looked literally like a cancer patient at that time.
Mm.
And I developed Candida, SIBO, H. pylori, leaky gut, parasites. And unfortunately, all that completely took my health and my vitality, and also like my image and my identity away at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, thank gosh, I've gotten through that. But it took me a good year and a year and a half to be able to get back to normal. And then took me 2 years to gain all that muscle back. But that being said, I went through that journey. I wrote my book. I continued to work, and I learned a lot about myself, deepened my faith in God, and was able to really actually understand who I was, work through my internal traumas. And I feel like I'm so much better of a human, even though I had to go through all that, so much better of a human because of all that, and a better practitioner.
I mean, that's a lot to go for multiple people to go through, let alone one person. And the thing that I think people need to know about you, because there's a lot of this on Instagram, there's a lot of people out there that are quote unquote nutritionists, but they're not. All right. The functional nutrition moniker doesn't mean you're actually a registered dietitian or you have a master's like you do. I mean, you are a hugely educated human being. And when you say you dove into the research, you know how to read the research. And so every woman out there right now, follow Lacy, because she's actually one of the real ones. And I'm not dissing on anybody else, but when those folks regurgitate things, they're regurgitating it from people like her. So it trickles down, but you want somebody that's at the pinnacle of the education process, and you are one of those people, which is why I follow you, because I learn stuff from you all the time. Now,
Thank you.
I follow you, and one of the things you posted the other day that I think was interesting is you said, and you put this on there, it's like maybe a week ago, unpopular opinion, your hormones are not the issue. Now, you wrote a book about hormones.
Yeah.
Now, you talk about getting to the root cause. So what are, for women that are out there, because, you get a lot of women that are reading, they're at midnight, they're miserable. And we know doctors don't like to order tests or order the right tests or whatever. What is at the root cause of a lot of these hormonal issues? Like, where do you start with people?
Ooh, that's a laundry list. And when we're talking hormones, want people to understand we're talking about sex hormones, estrogen,
Yes.
testosterone, progesterone, also thyroid hormones. Honestly, the biggest thing that I see as an issue is chronic stress. People not taking care of themselves, being go, 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 constantly being in fight or flight, under eating, over exercising. That honestly is the key demon. It was the key demon for me when I first started with having my own hormone issues. And it's the biggest one that I see nowadays.
Okay. Yeah, and nutrition is obviously enormous. I don't think that gets enough. And the problem is that a lot of people, menopause is different because you can't really eat your way back into, not having hormones. You can try, but it would be rather difficult. But I mean, hormones are where things start with food, right? I mean,
Right.
inflammation, cholesterol, the whole nine yards. So getting people back on track. And I kind of feel like that's the hardest part, because who wants to eat right? I mean, you got shots, you got pills, you got all this stuff. And that's neither here nor there. For some folks, it works great. And for others, maybe they need other things. But to just put people on, say, a GLP-1, like a semaglutide, it works. But if you don't correct the trips to the refrigerator or the ideas of because our food in this country is very lacking in nutrients. A company that I know the ladies that own called Needed, they they say 95% of the women that are prenatal that are looking to get pregnant have nutrient deficiencies. And they might think that they are not. They might think they eat good, but our food supply here is so deficient in nutrients that it's difficult to do that. I mean, how does somebody like you who builds muscle, I mean, I would challenge everyone to go look at you in a dress. It's quite impressive.
Thanks.
How much protein do you eat a day?
Yeah, I do want to comment on that because I completely agree. The wide variety of people in this world, they're overfed and undernourished. They're eating a
Yes.
lot of calories, but they're not consuming a lot of micronutrients, phytochemicals, antioxidants, and true nutrition to be able to feel like a vibrant, vital person and combat
Hmm.
oxidative stress and inflammation. So protein for me, I eat way more than I actually need, but that's because my metabolic needs are so much higher than a person that's normally my size. And I'm very thankful that's the case. But right now, I'm consuming about 180 grams of protein,
Oh,
which is
wow.
way more than I need to, because I'm about like almost 115 pounds at
Do
this
you
point.
feel
But
like eating that much protein is almost like a full-time job?
no, it's easy for me. I
Is it
love
easy?
it. It's so
Oh,
easy. Yeah, because I have to eat so many calories on a daily basis that getting in my meals, getting in my snacks, it's just easy for me to consume, which it's not for a lot of people. But I do think that's one huge macronutrient that women in particular actually miss out on and it holds them back is getting protein in. And for women, protein needs, it depends on, of course, your training and it depends on your activity levels. But for the most part, I like to suggest if you are training, 2 to 2.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. And for those that
wow.
don't know, you can get your kilograms by dividing your pound by 2.2, but that
Hmm.
would be a good range. And if like you're sedentary, I like to say 1.5 grams per kilogram. And that's higher than the RDA. The RDA, in my opinion, is a load of BS. It
Yeah.
doesn't incorporate the increased needs.
Yeah.
But yeah, those would be my suggestions for sure.
Would
And we
you
can talk about other
say,
things, but
yeah, but would you say that, you mentioned you have to eat a lot of calories. Do
mhm.
you find that you eat more now than you did probably when you were fatter because you have so much more muscle that you burn through that so fast that women that have more muscle actually do need to eat more to maintain their muscle mass? Like
Yes.
I had Jamie Seaman on a while back, Dr. Fit and Fabulous, and she's really muscular and she works out really hard like you do. And women don't need to, I think they see people that look like you and Jamie and they feel like, oh, I'm never going to look like that. But you got to start somewhere. I mean, what do you say to a woman that maybe is a little bit intimidated about going to lift at the gym because she doesn't know where to start? I mean, do I do bicep curls? Do I do squats? How do I use the machines? I mean, because it is a little bit daunting to
Mhm.
show up. And, you got the girls there that are taking their selfies and you got the guys there that are the big jar heads that are just, throwing around the weights and she's trying to work in on a machine. Where do you tell them to start?
Well, the first thing I like to say is everybody is so focused on themselves that they don't care what
True.
you're doing.
You're
I've
true.
seen so many Instagram reels of people going in the gym to prove this, grab snacks, watch Netflix, and literally nobody looks at them. So
Right.
it's really true. Nobody cares what you're doing. The biggest thing is finding a program for a beginner. And you can find so many free ones on the internet, especially Reddit. Like there's a Reddit called Sharing Fitness Guide. You can get like these
Mm.
free programs, find a program, follow it, learn the form, learn the exercises, stick to that for 8 to 12 weeks. And with being a beginner, I mean, you're going to have change just simply because of the beginner
Yeah.
gains.
So let's transition a little bit into your book. I mean, how did that come about? And it's not a small book. I mean, I know this. I wrote my book's like 500 pages, and it's a lot to
Mhm.
a lot of editing. And you kind of did this. Did you do it kind of on your own? Did you self-publish?
Yes, I self publish. I did it on my own. I did my own editing. Attempted to do my own proofreading, but ended up paying for
I
a
was gonna say,
proofreader.
when you do your own editing and proofreading, I didn't do my own editing, and I still hated my book at the end of all that.
Oh,
I read it.
no.
I read it so much. You're just like, oh my god, and then just like, but then I go back now and I look at it and I go, oh, that's pretty good. I don't remember writing that. But yeah, it's like, so when you do it all yourself, I mean, the marketing, all of that stuff. I mean, this is a labor of love, right? I mean,
Yes, it is.
what brought this about? What was it about you, inside you, that felt you needed to write this?
I always knew I wanted to write a book. I thought it was going to be a fiction book, but when I
Mm.
was going through the weeds of working with my clients, I realized I was literally saying the same thing over and
Hmm.
over and over again.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's a lot of repetition. And I
Hmm.
also realized there's a large demographic that can't afford to work with me, can't afford to work with dietitians. And I said, you know what? There's a huge hole in the space that I can fill by writing a book, laying it all out, and just giving like all the sum of my knowledge in my brain into a book for somebody that might be able to take their health back.
Yeah. And then what is the context of the book? Like I did mine with archetypes, and then I have the Shines protocol where I talk about spirituality and hormones and nutrition, exercise. What is kind of the slant of your take on the hormonal journey?
So the way I kind of laid it out was I started with what are hormones, what can go wrong with hormones, how to fix it, and then I went into the other quote unquote categories, bodily categories that can impact your hormones. So we have cortisol, endocrine disrupting chemicals, thyroid health, gut health, and then I talk about nutrition and metabolism as well. So I tried to give as much information as possible. And like you said in the beginning, I wrote a book about hormones, but hormones
Mhm.
are not the root cause, right? They're messengers screaming for help. So the book outlines, of course, what are the things that can impact your hormones, but also what can go wrong with your hormones and why. I tried to make it, easy to read, easy to understand, but also like I tried to make it like interesting and like grabby attention and be fun to read as well. So that was my goal with the book.
Yeah, it's hard to get people's attention spans now are so short that it's really hard to get people to keep their attention.
Mhm.
Your account, which I've looked at many times on Instagram, is you got a lot. I mean, there's a lot of density there, a lot of information. One that I found interesting was your public service announcement on holiday and food guilting.
Mm.
Um, what is food guilting?
Food guilting is basically making somebody feel guilty for not consuming a food that they bring to you or offer you. So,
Oh,
for
interesting.
example, you're at a party and maybe somebody made some cookies or a brownie and they're like, hey, try this. I made this for you.
Mm,
Guilting is when you're making somebody feel guilty for not consuming that food that you bring to them. And I see it time and time again. I have to talk to this with my clients all the time about it's okay to say no. You don't owe them consuming the food because they made it for you, and it's a big issue I see in the holidays. So I wanted to make a PSA because I saw it in person and I also see it time and time again with my clients, and it's not okay to guilt or shame somebody into eating a food, especially if it's going to cause them distress with their health.
yeah, I mean, I just had my son's girlfriend swing by and bring me some cookies, and uh, I you know I had one, and I was like, she gave me like eight, and I was like, you can take those back home to Hunter. He'll eat them because he's like skinny. And she's like, no, no, I want you to have them. And I was like, oh God, it's like, so they're sitting there, and she's not even there anymore. And I feel guilty if I don't eat them. It's like, it's pretty powerful to feel that, especially when you go to a party and we're getting into party season. So, I had a lady ask me this question yesterday. I was going to ask you when she said, she's like, I've been reading online about macros. She's like, what are macros? I don't think people really know what macros. What are macros?
People, they know, but they don't know. So macros are
Right.
just basically terms for the types of nutrients that you eat: your protein, your carbs, your fat, and then your alcohol. So every single food that you consume has different amounts of each macro in it. Like peanut butter is more fat, a little bit of protein, tiny little bit of carb. A pure egg white is going to have just protein. If you're going to have brown rice, that's going to have mostly carbs, a little bit of protein. But every single food that you have has a different amount of macros. And ultimately, as a human, we have all different types of macronutrient needs. And the key thing is, those macronutrient needs make up your caloric needs. And the key thing with physique building, body composition, trying to alter your body in any shape or form, weight loss or weight gain, you can use macros to strategically find out how does your body best use fuel and how does your body composition change in regards to those macronutrients. And that's why I love macros. I've tried tracked them for such a long period of time, it's fascinating to see by alternating those macro ratios how you can change the body composition and also help people with like insulin resistance and brain health, things like that.
Do you, when we talked about this in the beginning that you said you do work with people. When you do work with people, do you calculate things like macros for them?
So I always calculate macros for them when I develop their meal plans, but I don't make everybody track macros because tracking macros can be, or tracking calories can be very stressful. So I always calculate them for them, but I don't always have people track them because if we think about stress and its impact on the body and the hormones, not everybody needs to be tracking. It actually becomes detrimental to their health if they do that.
Well, but let's say, you're looking at somebody and you're like, okay, I want you to eat 120 grams of protein a day or shoot for that. People have to know how to read a label, or, and most of the time they don't. I mean, it's really, if you went, I hate to admit this, but about a month ago, I went to the Cheesecake Factory. Now, let's not judge. There were children involved, and that's where they wanted to go. So, anyways, the interesting thing about Cheesecake Factory is they put everything on their menu, like the macros and the amount of calories. And what I found fascinating was the salads had more calories than like the hamburger with the French fries did. So it is important to really know because I think your brain would say, "Oh, well, it's salad, right? I mean, it's good for me." But the dressing is killer. The breaded chicken things that they put on there. It's like I was talking to the waitress and I'm like, I don't even know. And the cheesecake, there's like a 37-page menu, and it's like, how can you first of all make all of this stuff? But number two, the and we're talking 2,300 calories for like one meal.
It's absurd.
And
Yeah.
a normal, I don't know, for a woman your size, to maintain your body weight, you have a lot of muscle, but 2,000 calories a day for you might be enough, and you're a small person, let alone 2,300 calories for one meal. And we wonder why people will say, well, I'm eating salads, or I don't eat a lot. It's like, yeah, but you're eating calorically dense food, which you mentioned before. We have we have no absence of calories. What we have, like you said, is an absence of nutrients. So when you look at people, when you first start working with people, what kind of nutrients do you find are the most kind of deficient? Like what things are women missing?
Protein and fiber, hands down, first and foremost.
Okay.
I see a lot of women, like the fats are so easy. Some women, they really struggle with getting carbohydrates in because they're afraid of them.
Yeah.
But fiber and protein are the things I see most deficient. And I think that becomes an issue because lacking that protein and fiber to keep you full, then they're constantly hungry throughout the day. And no wonder that they're constantly snacking and going for more of those high palatable foods because they have nothing to keep them satisfied. And I think nutrition education, like macros, macro tracking, really helps you to understand labels, be able to make informed decisions when you're going out to eat and making your own foods. So I think it's very, very important and helpful to get started to do that.
When you say carbs, what type of carbs do you mean?
What women are mostly deficient in?
Yeah. Because, I mean, fiber is a carb. It's a non-digestible carb. But, I mean, obviously, I always just tell women to make it easy. I'm like, get your carbs from fruits and vegetables. But are there any type of carbs, like not flour-based carbs, but like whole wheat or something like that is okay? Or what do you tell women?
Yeah, so definitely it's person by person dependent when it comes down to wheat and gluten. Some women need to stay away from them because of something like celiac disease, Hashimoto's disease.
Right.
Maybe they have like gut issues that don't allow them to digest that. But overall, I say focus if anything is going to be grain, especially a wheat product, make sure it's organic. So fiber, higher fiber types of carbs that I love would be like an organic whole wheat bread, tortillas. You could do alternatives too, like chickpea, cassava, almond based tortillas and breads. Big fan of rice, basmati, brown. You could
Okay.
do quinoas, lentils, oatmeal, all things like that.
So something I want to talk about that maybe may depress you a little bit, but I was a little bit I was bummed out. It was just like a couple weeks ago. You announced your supplement company was stopping.
Yes.
I mean, that's a lot
Yes.
of work too.
Yeah.
You said you just had a hard time competing with the big guys.
It's a labor of love that I developed. And I realized, and this is also my fault, I realized I did not like saying, take my supplement.
Yeah, I have that problem too. I don't have a supplement line, but I just feel like it's like, oh, I get it. I get it.
I'd rather, because so many people would be like, oh, I'm having XYZ problem with my hormones. Should I take your supplement? And
Right.
instead of saying yes, I wanted to know, what's your diet like? What's your stress like? What's your
Yeah.
sleep like? And I noticed I was just like, instead of giving my supplement, I was just doing doing all the root cause work anyway. And so I was a really bad marketer. And some people would benefit from my line, of course. But I realized I did not like pushing it. And also I could not compete with the big guys. I mean, integrative therapeutics, metagenics,
Yeah.
all those high end companies, I could not compete with their marketing at all whatsoever either. So it became very, very hard, but I'm at peace now with it, knowing that I
Yeah.
did it and I tried it and
Yeah.
it looked fabulous and the formulas were amazing. So at least I did it.
Well, you have an amazing website, the upliftfitnutrition.com. And there is a section in there, work with me, and you have some services that you do. Why don't you tell women out there how they can work with you? Because I'm telling you, if you go to her Instagram page, you want to look like her. So,
Well,
how
thank
can they?
you.
What kind of services do you have for women?
So I categorize my services basically in three different ways. I have basic coaching, which is all about physique change, body recomposition, and weight loss if you feel like a thriving human. I have my premium coaching, which if you're struggling with any gut issues, thyroid, hormonal imbalances, fatigue, that's the thing for you. That's a lot of one-on-one support, functional testing, overview programs. And then of course I also have one-offs, so one-time consultations, follow-up appointments, anybody that can't afford like my premium coaching or just wants to chat with me to, pick my brain. Those would be the top options that I have. And the cool thing that I love is the people that work with me with my premium that are going through such a hard time. Those are the ones that get to transition into basic and then to get to work on their body recomposition goals, their fat loss, once their hormones and their health are healed.
So I mean, but you'll take women kind of at any stage, beginners and even
And
advanced
men.
people and men.
Yep.
Okay.
And men.
And right now you have something on your site about a free thyroid mastery ebook. What is that book all about?
So I have that, and I also have the cortisol chapter of my book that people can
Oh,
get just by going
oh,
on my
cool.
website and going to my book. So the thyroid basically just talks about what is hypothyroidism, what is Hashimoto's, what are the different things that can contribute to that, and those are things that are completely all in my book. But it's just a mini little pamphlet on that.
Oh, well, that's
If
good.
anybody wants
And
those details.
are you still doing a podcast?
I still have a podcast. Yes. It used to be Uplift Fit Nutrition Radio, but now it's Root Cause Radio because I have a co-host now.
Oh, okay, cool. And how many are you guys? Do you have a lot of episodes or?
I have a lot of episodes in general. We're like 171 now
Oh,
with
wow.
past episodes. Yeah, there's a lot of information on there. If anybody wants to get into nitty gritties, holy crap, there's a lot of good detailed episodes. But our goal is pumping out like one every 2 weeks right now.
And what do you kind of get into? Just hormones and
Root
just,
cause of hormones, gut issues, thyroid, trying to give people as many like detailed practical episodes to make sure that they fully understand, because there's a lot of like overview and I hear the same episodes like time and time again, like, oh, this is causing your estrogen dominance, fix this, this, and this, but it's like the same thing you hear over and over again. So we're trying to get into the nitty gritties for people.
great. Is there anything that you don't do? Because you pretty much got all the bases covered: books, services, podcasts. Do you is most of your stuff virtual, or do you work with people in person too?
Here and there, I work with people in person here in Jacksonville, but overall, I really prefer online. I think it's so
Yeah.
much easier for people's schedules. They don't have to drive, so that's what I prefer to do and typically do. And I work with people across the world too, which is phenomenal, and I love it.
Do you have like workouts too, like that you tell them what to, like you mentioned, go to
Yes.
Reddit and find a workout plan, but do you have stuff like that too that they can do?
Yes. So I make my own workout programs for my clients.
Oh, wow.
One of my
Okay.
favorite things to do, uh, if people want free workouts, you can get those time and time again. But if you really can find a custom program for you, your needs, what works best for your body, then yes, I'm more than happy to always make those.
Wow. That's a lot of work. Okay.
Workouts are fun for me though. I tell my clients I like putting them through hell.
Yeah,
I do.
I don't know if that's a good marketing state. I mean, I guess, yeah, it could be. Man, it's like, yeah, I like that. I mean, there probably are some people that would enjoy that, but I did this workout the other day. I don't know if you ever heard of this, where they hooked me up to like electrodes, and they turn these electrodes up, and then they have you do the actual lifting part. And I've never had that happen before, but it was only like 30 minutes, and I couldn't barely walk to the car. I've never had that. So, I mean, the point being, I guess, is you don't have to be in the gym for like 2 hours. I mean, I think that's another thing that
Mm-mm.
women fear, is that, oh, they got to be in there, doing all this stuff. And I mean, what a typical workout for you? How long?
An hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
Leg days, upper body days, an hour, maybe an hour 15 if I'm doing stretching or mobility work. And then I'm out of there. Like the longer you go, the more that you're not going to gain more muscle by going longer and going harder. There's actually a specific amount of set volume that you can hit before you actually kind of
Hmm.
like lose any potential muscle adaptation and growth and recovery from that. So I always like to say an hour to an hour and 15 is picture perfect. 5 days a week is plenty.
And what do you think about cardio? What's your take on cardio?
I like using cardio as a tool and for
Okay.
cardiovascular health. So it depends, what is your goal? And also, what can your body handle?
Hmm.
And what do you need to do? If you're insulin resistant, you probably got to do a little bit more cardio than somebody who wasn't. And if your
Hmm.
goal is to build muscle, you definitely want to keep cardio as low as possible, especially retaining muscle. So it really just depends on by the person. I personally don't like cardio. I don't like doing any of it, but that's
Yeah.
because for me, I easily waste away my muscle when I do more cardio. So it really depends on the person. But my least favorite thing, just because I have to say it, is HIIT, because HIIT is so hard, high intensity cardio. So
Hmm.
sprints, biking sprints, that can even be in things like Orange Theory classes for F45, but that's
Hmm.
really hard on the adrenals. So if anybody's doing constant HIIT throughout the week, just stop. It's way too hard on
Hmm.
your body, like maximum twice a week.
I think if you look at it, the people that, I see the people that do tons of cardio are the ones that have more like osteoporosis, more adrenal issues, because they're pushing themselves so far. And so like they run too much, or it's like, because muscle is really where it's at. And, I'm sure she's a friend of yours, but Gabrielle Lyon's book, Forever
Oh,
Strong,
yeah.
just came out. And that's kind of Gabby's thing. She hates to be called that. So Gabrielle's thing is muscle is the key to longevity. But as you said, which I think is important, some people need more cardio because, that's what's coming out right now, is that muscle, 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 which is fine. But some people do need the cardio, and it doesn't have to be HIIT. It can be, I think they just came out with a study that people that walk 45 minutes a day actually they live longer than people that don't. So it doesn't, I always try to get women, like you said, because I hate it. I hate cardio too. I just hate it. But it can be walking. It doesn't have to be, sprinting. It doesn't have to be. I did F45 for a long time, and it hurt. My body was just hurting. I couldn't, my ankles didn't like it, and my knees. And so you can, overdo it on those things too. So in kind of closing, how do women find you? We mentioned your websites and stuff, and we'll have it in all the show notes. But what would be, if somebody's listening, they like your attitude, which is very fun and bubbly, and you have a very, like I said, Faith and Fit on Instagram, just go check her out. But how do they start? Like, where would they find you, and how can they start working with you?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to get to chat with you and be on here.
Sure.
Definitely, you can go straight to my Instagram at Faith and Fit. That's the best way to find me and follow me. And then if you want to work with me, you can go to upliftfitnutrition.com and you can click services and you can learn about the different options. And if you want to go through the website too, I have other blogs, resources. You can download the cortisol chapter of my book, kind of like go through what I am and find some knowledge from me. And then if you want to work with me, just shoot me a message.
And the book again is called The Women's Guide to Hormonal Harmony:
Yep.
How to Rebalance Your Hormones, Master Your Metabolism, and Become the Boss of Your Own Body. And you can definitely still get that on Amazon, I'm assuming.
Yep. Amazon is the GOAT for sure.
Well, Lacey, it has been a few years in the making. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure we will be contacting each other in the future. I really appreciate your knowledge base and hope to maybe even work with you in the future.
You as well. Thank you so much, and hope everybody has a great rest of your day.
Take care.